for peace in the Middle East. Of the book. dissolving into the divine flow. And again, as we inhale, we expand the spaciousness within us. We move beyond the limitations and boundaries of our bodies. And as we exhale, we ground ourselves deep within Mother Earth and into our oneness with the universe. Finally, we breathe our awareness into the highest expression of love, light, joy, and peace we can imagine as we experience a transforming wave of gratitude. And with a fullness of heart, we say yes to it all, embracing, claiming, and knowing the divine Christ Spirit expressing in, through, and as us. And with a final exhale, we say, thank you, God. So now, fully centered and transformed by the power of Spirit, we enter into our lesson and meditation time in today's daily word.
We read from Daily Word for tomorrow, November 1st, shared with permission of Daily...
I'm sorry, it shouldn't say that. It's today's, January 2nd. Ignore that.
Okay. My bad.
No, my
Today's
bad,
January 2nd, anyway. I don't know where we are. Shared with permission of Unity, publisher of Daily Word, that can also be found at dailyword.com. In the word is clarity. I invite you to allow my words to be your words. Time spent communing with God gives me clarity. When I gaze toward the heavens on a moonlit night, I expect to see twinkling stars and constellations. But if I use a telescope, I can see details with much greater clarity. This example could describe my spiritual life as well. I may go about my day mindful of my blissful feelings and kinship with all the people. These things and more are the fruits of my faith. But I find clarity during times of intentional contemplation. When I meditate upon the truth, I feel the presence of God fill my consciousness and touch my heart. This clarity informs my thoughts, words, and actions, bringing my faith to vivid life. And from the scriptures. For now we see in a mirror dimly, but then we will see face to face. Now I know only in part, then I will know fully, even as I have been fully known. 1 Corinthians chapter 13, verse 12. In witness to the wisdom of the many paths to the sacred, We read from 3 sacred traditions on this morning's topic, new beginnings. From Buddhism, no matter how hard the past, you can always begin again. From Judaism, do not remember the former things or consider the things of old. I am about to do a new thing. Now it springs forth. Do not perceive it? I will make a way in the wilderness and rivers in the desert. And from Christianity, let anyone who has an ear listen to what the Spirit is saying to the churches. To everyone who conquers, I will give some of the hidden manna, and I will give a whole stone, and on the white stone is written a new name that no one knows except the one who receives it. Revelation chapter 2, verse 17.
Let's begin from this moment. Let's begin now. From within, feel excitement to begin now. To grow as we follow the breath of life, sharing love with the bread of life, making all things new. To know as we enter the flow of life that the Christ is and flow with life, lighting every new horizon. Let's begin from this moment. Let's begin now. From within, feel excitement to begin now. Let's begin ever growing. Let's begin ever knowing. Let's begin. Let's begin now.
Is that from the old Wings of Song hymnal? Wow, that's going way back. In the Wayback Machine. You guys are quiet today. Are you all alive? It's a weird time, right? After there's been this sort of lull of after Christmas and New Year, and sort of don't know what's happening. Well, we have just begun a new year. How many of you in the new year have a tradition of making a New Year's resolution or anything like that? Sort of. It's in our culture a lot, right? You see a lot about it, especially on the internet, social media. There's all kinds of, everything is all the weight loss programs and starting a gym membership and all these things we're going to do in the new year, right? And so New Year's resolutions are typically about something that we're going to do in the new year, right? I'm going to do this new exercise program, or I'm going to, get organized or start eating healthier or whatever it is. And there's nothing wrong with us wanting to be healthier, but I just want to say a word about this type of self-improvement kind of intentions. There's a wonderful Protestant minister. I don't know if you've ever heard of her, but I follow her on social media. She's irreverent, which of course tells you right there why I love her. Her name is Nadia Bolz-Weber, and every year she posts a post about resolutions, and this is what she says. She says, "Here is your yearly reminder. There is no resolution that, if kept, will make you more worthy of love. You, as your actual self and not some made-up ideal, are already worthy." What a wonderful reminder, right? There's nothing wrong with wanting to improve ourselves, but we gotta sort of take a look at that and make sure that we aren't caught up in this whole idea that once I make this improvement, then I'm going to be okay. It's a sort of spiritual procrastination, right? We might fall into this trap of thinking that, once I achieve this thing or kick this habit or get organized or stop doing X, Y, or Z or start doing X, Y, or Z, then I will be worthy of God's love. Then I will feel spiritual, right? Then I will let God love me when I've lost weight, when I've X, Y, or Z, whatever it is. So let's just be aware of that as we get sort of bombarded with all of this New Year's stuff, that we don't need to do anything to be worthy. Certainly not of God's love. And not of our own love and appreciation and acceptance of ourselves. It's one of many things we seem to take to the extreme in this culture, right? This sort of this self-improvement culture. What if we were okay just as we were right now? Without any improvements or upgrades or modifications? What if it wasn't new year, new me, but new year, same old wonderful, flawed, mixed bag me? Human, real, authentic. So, today we're going to do a ceremony which is much less about what we are going to do in the new year and much more about who we are being called to be in the new year. What spirit is calling us to step into as the next step in our spiritual evolution or our spiritual growth. If you attended our Burning Bowl service or watched it online or are familiar with it, you know that, and it happened here yesterday, that ceremony is all about releasing and letting go. So we symbolically burned or released all that no longer serves us to leave it behind in the old year and use this new beginning to step into something new, free of that sort of, all those things that are weighing us down that we don't need anymore. And we write what we're releasing on slips of paper, and then we symbolically burn the sage in the bowl. We also do visioning about what we would like to aim for in the new year. Today's white stone ceremony, which we'll be doing, is going to sort of take that process one step further. But before we begin the actual ritual, I want to explain to you a little bit about the history of it and some of the metaphysics of it. So the white stone ceremony is actually quite ancient, has ancient roots, and has been adapted for us for modern times. In Jesus' time, which was in the 1st century of the Common Era, under the Roman Empire, when someone served time in prison or in a bondage of any kind, upon release they were given a white stone. And you were to carry that stone with you everywhere you went. And everyone understood that if you had that white stone with you, not only were you free, you were a free person, which meant something under that political regime, but you had a clean slate. You had paid your dues. So whatever it was, you had served your time, and you were allowed to begin afresh. Also, incidentally, carrying that stone gave you all the benefits of being a Roman citizen, which was important at that time. This meant that the Roman army would protect you, and that was no small thing at that time. But looking at this metaphysically, we all have ways in which we are still in bondage. Am I right? Things that we are in bondage to, negative thought patterns, destructive habits, maybe stagnant emotions, things that we are still carrying, unresolved grief or resentment or anger. So today we're going to have an opportunity to use this white stone ceremony to symbolize that we can leave behind whatever personal prison we may have created for ourselves, so that we have an opportunity to begin this new year fresh, with a clean slate, without carrying into the new year the bondage of the past. The white stone ritual comes specifically from the Bible, from a scripture, and it is the second chapter of Revelation, verse 17. So I'm going to read, we already heard it, I'm going to read it again, and then we'll parse it out, and we'll look at the metaphysical meaning of it. Let anyone who has an ear listen to what the Spirit is saying to the churches. To everyone who conquers, I will give some of the hidden manna, and I will give a white stone. And on the white stone is written a new name that no one knows except the one who receives it. So in this part of the book of Revelation, John is addressing the Christians in the city of Pergamum, which is present-day Turkey. They were being tempted by evil, and they were straying from their biblical teachings. We never do that, right? In John's address, in this address that he gives to the people, he first is sort of rebuking the people and then encouraging them. So it's a promise that if they resist temptation, the Lord will give them this white stone. And it was a symbol that meant that they had been acquitted or declared not guilty of their sin. So it says, let anyone who has an ear listen to what the Spirit is saying to the churches. Metaphysically, the churches were those people whose thoughts were turned towards God. In this case, it was the people of Pergamum. To everyone who conquers, I will give some of the hidden manna. To all who see beyond the appearances, I will give all that is needed to live. So we remember the story of the ancient Israelites wandering in the wilderness with Moses, right? And during those days that they were wandering in the wilderness, the manna was that which God sent down from heaven each day in order to sustain the people. And the cool thing was, all they had to do was go out and collect it each day. That'd be kind of cool. Burritos falling from the sky. Tacos. This is how I see the world. I'm sorry. They didn't have to do anything. They just went out and received this sustenance that God was sending them each day. Metaphysically, this represents that love of God, which is freely available to us all, and that we don't have to do anything to earn. Just like I was talking about at the beginning, we don't have to lose weight in order for God to sustain us with that infinite love. We are loved just as we are. There is no earning of that manna from heaven. All we have to do is open ourselves up to receive it. That's our job. And so then it talks about I will give a white stone, and on the white stone is written a new name that no one knows except the one who receives it. So names are very important spiritually, and in biblical times, a name was a very sacred thing. Every name represented a quality. And we have metaphysical meanings behind every name in the Bible that are compiled in our Metaphysical Bible Dictionary that Charles Fillmore put together. And so in the Bible, every name actually means a quality that was in that person who carried that name. And when you had a child, you didn't choose a name for your child because, I like that name. You chose it for the essence that you saw in the child or that you wanted to imbue in the child. You can see sometimes in the Bible when people's names change. For example, when Saul had his experience on the road to Damascus where he was struck blind for 3 days and had his conversion experience, he was given a new name after that awakening. So before his conversion experience, his name was Saul, which means personal will, right? After he was transformed and had his conversion experience, he became Paul, which means enlightened will. And as I mentioned, in those days when a prisoner was freed, they got a new name that was written on a white stone. And this new name was given to them directly by God, and no one else intervened, and no one else was aware of this new name. It was like a new nature, symbolizing their freedom from bondage. And so when people had overcome something, they were set free from their bondage, and they received the stone as a symbol. They had overcome their enslavement, paid their dues, and they were ready to begin anew. So also, the Jews, after wandering in the wilderness, they had overcome that hardship, the time spent in the wilderness, and they had rededicated themselves to God and were ready to begin anew. So the white stone story is really a story about overcoming difficulty, about rededicating ourselves to Spirit, to God, and as a result of going through that process, receiving all that we need to begin again with a fresh slate, and without needing to earn it, to receive the loving sustenance of God. Well, this sounds to me a little bit like what we have all been through over the past year. 2 years now, almost 2 years, right? So we've been through a difficult time. Those of us that are here are those who have survived. We have survived and we are still here. And we have been transformed by the hardship that we have been through. And so this is a perfect time for us to, emulate this process of having passed through the hardship. Now we're ready to rededicate ourselves to our spiritual path, to our spiritual growth, to God, and receive a new name that will carry us into that new phase. And so as we begin this ceremony, I invite you to consider, is there something that you are in bondage to in your life? Is there a place in your life that you seem to be unable to move forward? Sometimes there's those sticking points, those things that we're grappling with, and it feels like there's no movement. Maybe now is the time that you are ready to move forward from that. Is there something in you that is yearning to be released, to let go? This could be so many different things. It could be a grief over a loss that you've been carrying for too long now. It could be anger or resentment that you've carried that has become a burden. It could be guilt or fear. Whatever it is that is keeping you stuck. Sometimes when we go through a difficult loss, as so many of us have in the past couple of years, or when we release something really significant, we almost literally take on a new identity. It's like we're a new person after that thing has happened. And so today we're going to have an opportunity to take on that new identity by receiving a name from God that will signify our new freedom. This name, and it could be a word of any kind, it's a new way for us to see ourselves. Sometimes we keep identifying, even though we have moved forward, we keep identifying with our old self, right? And so this is a way to sort of take on a new identity of how I'm going to see myself moving forward, and it can help us move. This is a way of seeing ourselves as someone who is no longer in bondage to the past, or as we would say in unity language, no longer enslaved by our error thought, by error consciousness. Sometimes doing this, taking this step, this moving forward, this new identity can be frightening. But it's also very powerful and very freeing. And rituals, as we know, like the ritual we did yesterday and the one we're going to do today, they're an outward demonstration of something that's really happening internally, right? So this is internal. But then we do something outward to sort of symbolize it, sort of anchors it in the world of appearances, in the material world. And so this ceremony today will help us to outwardly demonstrate the new identity that we're ready to step into in the new year. It's a sort of saying yes to Spirit, saying yes to what we are what we feel deep inside we are being called to step into. So, we're going to begin. And so just as we do within meditation, this whole portion is going to be sort of a meditative, contemplative activity, and Denise will be playing some soft music. So just like we do in meditation, I invite you to get comfortable in your seat. There's no right or wrong way, whatever feels right to you. And as we do that, we might want to take some deep breaths, sort of centering ourselves, grounding ourselves into the present moment, making ourselves available to Spirit, and consciously inviting in the activity of God. Giving the Holy Spirit permission to act on our hearts and minds over the next few minutes. Inviting our ego selves to take a few minutes off, to just be on the back burner for a few minutes, so that we can let that divine, holy self come through and speak through us. Give yourself permission to know that you have a new quality, a new name, a new life to step into. That new name or word, it could be something like peace or love, truth, presence. Something that will allow you to take on the new essence of this word. And later you'll be invited to write that word or new name on your stone and carry it with you as you carry that new name in your heart. So let's allow our meditation song now to carry us into a deeper connection with God, the God of our own understanding, our own higher power, who's going to be our guide and our partner on this journey.
God is here, God is now, God is all. God is alive within my heart. So I see and I feel and I know all is perfect and right in my world. God is here, God is now, God is all. God is alive within my heart. So I see and I feel and I know all is perfect and right in my world.
Allow those words to just enter into your heart, that God is here, God is now, God is all. And all is perfect and right in my world. In this moment, I have everything I need. In this moment, I am sustained. And so we call forth, we invite, and we allow Spirit to express through us and as us. As we enter this process, I invite you now to take the white stone in your hand and hold it in your hand, seeing it as representing a clean slate, a fresh beginning. No matter what last year was like, God's love is like that. The indwelling Spirit in each of us says to us, I make all things new. See that white stone as a symbol of new life. And so whatever has gone on in the past, we let it go. This is a sign of our ability in this moment to live in this new beginning. This is a moment in which we know we are free. Free from all that has previously bound us. The white stone will act as a reminder to us that we have the gift of choice. The gift to live differently, to live a more fulfilling life, to begin again, to rededicate and connect with God and to co-create our lives with God. John wrote in the book of Revelations that the white stone carries a new name, the spiritual identity and a deeper awareness of what God has planned for you. No one in the entire universe but you and God knows what this name is. But it has come to you to be lived out, to be expressed, to be embodied as you. It is what God is calling you to be or do, become, step into. It is a whisper from your soul that you are so much more than you have ever before allowed yourself to be, to express. And so now, as you are guided by Spirit, let this name come to you. And it may feel to you as if you are making it up, because this name that is revealed to you may seem so wonderful, or so much of what you have yearned for, that it may not seem possible, but I invite you to trust in this now moment. As Spirit calls to you in this sacred place, in this moment of truth, that God reveals to you an insight into your divine purpose, an insight into your holy essence. And so in that secret place of the Most High, I invite you to allow yourself to hear the new name that God has for you. It's important that we try not to use our will to come up with a name that we want or desire, or a name that's driven by our ego. It's usually best to go with whatever comes to you first. Try not to judge whatever name Spirit gives you. At first, you may not understand why this name or word or phrase has been given to you. That's okay. Receive it anyway. Trust that more will be revealed. And at some point during this next year, it will become clear to you. And if for whatever reason nothing definitive comes to you during this meditation today, please don't worry. Take your white stone home with you. Continue to sit in meditation with the expectation and the knowing and the trusting that your name will be revealed. going to give you just a few moments now to simply rest in the silence and to open your heart to that still small voice. Let anyone who has an ear listen to what the Spirit is saying. As this new name becomes clear to you, if you wish, you can write it on the stone. This could be anything. It could be a new career, a new title, or a new quality that Spirit is longing to express through you. Could be something like published author, or clean and sober, or grateful. If a name has come to you, I invite you to just remain in the quiet and allow yourself to ask for a deeper understanding. Ask if there are any steps you need to take. In this moment, allow yourself to simply open to Spirit, to say, God in me reveals my true essence. God in me reveals my next step. God as me lives a joyous, peaceful, and fulfilling life. Behold, I make all things new. For you are my beloved, in whom I am well pleased.
God is here, God is now, God is all. God is alive within my heart. So I see and I feel and I know all is perfect and right in my world.
is God's good pleasure to give you this kingdom. Accept this consciousness of ever-increasing good in your life. I invite you to carry this white stone with you as a reminder of the promise that has been made to you today. And so it is. Amen and amen.
It's a little difficult to break that energy. Carry that in, hold it. Unity of Monterey Bay is the collective consciousness and commitment of all of us who give of our time, treasure, and talent in order to sustain the spiritual community that is dedicated to transforming lives. We know that prosperity is a state of mind that finds blessings in every situation and abundance in joyous generosity. We transform all appearance of fear or lack into faith-filled peace of mind by shifting our attention to thoughts of gratitude for the abundance of God's good in our lives. And with our hearts and minds overflowing with gratitude, we breathe into the divine flow of God's good, trusting that we are enough, that we have enough, and that there always is enough to both have and to share. And again, we're grateful to all of you for your online giving through our website at unityofmontereybay.org and through your mailed-in offerings, including those who have set up automatic giving with your banking institutions. We are truly grateful and truly blessed. For those of you here in person, the baskets are still in the back by the door for you to drop your offering off as you leave this morning. And now, from this place of faith and gratitude, I invite you to join me in mindful intention and joining in our offertory blessing. I am an open channel for God's infinite good. Divine love flowing through me blesses and multiplies everything I give and everything I receive. I am both blessed and a blessing. Thank you, God.
Bring it on. Everything new, everything different, everything true. I am ready for my next thing to do. All I know, it's gonna be everything new. I'm through crying, I'm through waiting, I'm through hoping against all hope. I'm through longing for something gone that'll never return. I think I finally learned, so bring it on. Everything new, everything different, everything true. I am ready for my next thing to do. All I know is gonna be everything new. I'm through grieving, I'm through dreaming that the life I had is ever coming back. No more wishing on someone else's star. That'll never be mine. I think it's time, so bring it on. Everything new, everything different, everything true. I am ready for my next thing to do. All I know is gonna be everything new. I've survived many times before. Broken heart
and slam the door. I'll be alright, yes I will, once more. Just as I did back then, I'm gonna rise again. Bring it on, everything new, everything different, everything true. I am ready for my next thing to do. All I know is gonna be everything new. Bring it on, everything new, everything different, everything true. I am ready for my next thing to do. All I know is gonna be everything new. Oh, I know it's gonna be everything new.
Thank you, John. I love that song. That's awesome. Everything new. Bring it on. Well, we want to thank the musicians whose music we used today: Carrie Landry, Bill Provost, Richard Burdick, and Daniel Namod, and of course Denise and John and Robin singing. And so we have some announcements today. First of all, I'm sad to say we can't have fellowship after the service. Just for a little while until this Omicron thing kind of calms down a little. It's best if we're not all taking our masks off and in close. It's my favorite part. I love hanging out with you guys. But hopefully if we just do this for a few weeks, everything will calm down and we will all still be here so that we can do it again together. So, also, Nicole has, next Sunday, right, after the service, like about 11:30, Nicole, I'm so excited about this. Nicole is going to be doing a little workshop on visioning in the new year. So I think we've been collecting magazines, but you can always bring more. And I think she said it's best to bring your own scissors, so we're not like all sharing one pair of scissors. So we're going to be, I don't know that much about it, but we're going to be doing some collaging and visioning for the new year. And this is for adults and children. Children need to come accompanied by parents, but sounds like some fun. And I'm assuming if it's at 11:30 that you can bring something to snack with you. So that will be next week after the service. And on January 30th, just kind of looking forward into the future, is going to be our Calling the Circle. So plan to attend that day. Again, I think it'll be probably right after the service, right? This is our annual meeting of the whole congregation to go over various things. And I think we have some election of new board members coming up and things like that. So that's just a reminder to put that on your calendar. Okay. As we prepare to bring our service to a close today, we are so grateful you have joined us here, whether you're here in person or virtually, and we hope we've made you feel at home, as always, in our Unity of Monterey Bay community. And we want you to know that wherever you are on your spiritual journey, you are always welcome here. Our chaplain on duty today is Robin. She's available to pray with you after the service. We thank her for that service. And just remember that our prayer chaplains are always holding the high watch for this community, answering the prayer requests that come in through all the various channels, through our website or through the little slips in your pews, which can be placed in the prayer box in the back. And just a reminder that Silent Unity is also available by phone, by email, by Alexa, by app, all different kinds of ways to get a hold of Silent Unity to have someone pray with you. So before we make our closing circle, Walter wanted to say something, right? Walter, did you want to? Yeah, go ahead.
Good morning. Yesterday was Paco's birthday. So 6 of us went to a restaurant in Seaside.
Blackbird Diner. You know, we're real highfalutin folks.
So we went to the Black Bear and we sat in a circle. And we were having a meal.
No, we were stuffing our faces with pancakes. Let's be honest
all
now.
right. That's
Okay.
the truth. We were stuffing our face with pancake. There was a visitor there. Unbidden, unrequested, uninvited. A seventh visitor. And don't know what brought him there. I asked Michelle, how did he get here? What brought him? What made him appear? So he spoke. And spoke of being a 19-year-old who had gone to war some time ago. And he spoke and he spoke and he spoke. And they listened very intently to this visitor. After a while, it had to stop. This visitor had said what he had to say. His name is PTSD-Vietnam. Didn't expect him to appear. Did not expect him to appear at his birthday, at her invitation. It shook the table. I swear, it shook the table. She looked at me to my right. Susanna looked at me to my left. Paco looked at me to my front. Nicole and Larry were very attentive to me. Very attentive. So I wanted to share that with you. I want to say thanks to Susanna, to Paco, to Guruji Michel, to my friends downstairs who tend to the children, Nicole and Larry. They were there. I can't say enough about what they did for me. The most important thing is that they had me speak, they listened, and they heard me. Okay? This was a kid who appeared 50 years since, and I didn't expect to see him appear then. I went home, I went to sleep, I woke up. I sweated. I sweated. I was back there. He was there with us. He was there in me. So, when she talked about manna from the heavens, that was my manna from the heaven moment. When she talks about letting go, I didn't want to let go. And I said that. But I had no choice. He was there. So, I want to say thank you to my 5 friends, and through them, thank you for letting me be here with you and letting me speak to you. I want to close by saying this. If there's one thing I've learned in this church, from Guruji and from our Guruma, Vicky, God is good all the time. Namaste.
what Walter's talking about is an example of the profound healings that can take place when we hold sacred space for one another. And when we open ourselves up to this process to allow Spirit to work through us, to show us what is that next piece that is ready to be healed in me. Sometimes we don't think we're ready. We didn't ask for it. We didn't want it, but there it is. And if we are fortunate enough to have a sacred space that others are holding for us, deep, profound healings of 50 years duration can happen. So I am grateful to have been even a small part of that. And we love you. And we all continue to hold space for you and all those who suffer from PTSD and those types of things. So thank you, God. Thank you, God. So I have a New Year's wish for you. In this new year, may you accept the grace of this divine opportunity to begin afresh. May you step ever more fully into who you are being called to be. May you embrace your divine partnership with God in co-creating a more peaceful, more joyful, more just, and more equitable world. May you experience an ever greater expression of God's good in your life. And may all of this be for the benefit of you, of others, and of all beings. And so it is. Amen. Let's form our closing circle for our prayer for protection and our peace song. So as we form this sacred circle of love and of healing and of that beloved community, I invite you to just cast any of your worries, fears, concerns, prayer requests for loved ones in need into this circle, knowing that our prayers are being answered even now. And so we hold this beloved community and all of its members in our hearts as we join in our prayer for protection. The light of God surrounds us. I am light. The love of God enfolds us. I am love. The power of God protects us. I am power. The presence of God watches over us. I am presence. Wherever we are, God is, and all is well. Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. Let there be peace on earth, the peace that was meant to be, with God as creator, family all are we. Let us walk with each other in perfect harmony. Let peace begin with me. Let this be the moment now. With every step I take, let this be my joyous vow. To take each moment and live each moment in peace eternal. Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with
I loved it.